Hello, hello, beautiful rays of light. I am Nikki S. Silas, your spiritual guide, well-being educator, and all-around inspiration giver. Thank you for joining me in this time and this space on my channel. Today we have another special guest, Dr. Gerald Carlton Hassell, and he will be sharing the beautiful things he is doing to help heal young African American men. He's going to talk about his retreats, his books, and just his all around purpose of why he is choosing to heal these people. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. G. Welcome.
Hello, Nikki. Hello, Nikki. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, be in your energy, very positive and radiant. So I appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you for being here. I want to share with everyone real quick, and Dr. G is going to talk more about him living in Mexico. Yes, Dr. G lives in another country, and he's going to share his upcoming retreat. We got so much to talk about, some beautiful things we're going to talk about today. But I reached out to Dr. G in an expat group, and that's I say that because that's the purpose, my purpose of doing social platforms. It's we can meet people, we can connect with people, even if it's virtually, and get so much ideas of whether you want to go to another country or if you just want to say hello to people. It's the beautiful thing with reaching out to people through social platforms, the use of social platforms. So using our social platforms in a positive manner is possible, you all. And that's how we have Dr. G today for our guest.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I want to share with you all, and Dr. G is going to talk more about herself as well. But Dr. G is a psychologist. He is an author. He is an all-around person that is, again, seeking to heal our young Black men. He is a retreat leader. And take it from here, Dr. G. Tell everyone out there in the beautiful land about what you're doing.
Well, with the retreat, I'm like really super excited about that. We are planning the Black Man Self Mastery Retreat here in
Yes.
Puerto Morelos, which will be February 15th to the 19th. It will be a small group of Black men at a secluded resort here in Puerto Morelos, where we'll have the whole place.
Yes.
Uh, it'll be
Oh.
about 15 or 16 of us, so
Oh.
really opportunity to dive deep into connection, dive deep into spirituality,
Mm.
dive deep into understanding the perspective of self-mastery, which is my platform and what I teach, and also an opportunity for generational connections to be made. So one of the things that like I'm really excited about was that we had a scholarship fund drive, and we are bringing four young African American men from the age of 19. One is 19, as young as 19, the other one is 23. So the criteria is 18 to 23. So we have four young men that we're bringing here from the States, totally free.
Mm.
Like everything is paid for. The only thing they have to do is get on the plane. And the community, which I'm so grateful for, made that possible through their contributions at our GoFundMe campaign. So we're committed to bridging that generational gap.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
have men from 19 to 75 in this
Oh, wow.
retreat. And that was also very important to us. So, we know the power that happens when men have the time and the space and the opportunity to connect, that it creates generational progress, right?
Yes.
So the men not only benefit themselves, but their children and their
Yes.
grandchildren can benefit. So this can change the pattern in life and the trajectory for generations to come. So we'll be having workshops at the retreat. Um, we will be having excursions to the beach. We're just 20, 15 minutes away from the beach,
Ooh.
um, secluded site, uh, full body massages on the beach. We're going to pamper and take care of these men. Everything's provided. Uh, and at the same time, we'll have some healing ceremonies as well. So I'm super excited about it. This is something that has been a vision and is coming to fruition now.
You know, you bring up, you say generational progress, and I love how you phrase that because one of my sayings is we hear of generational wealth, and I'm for that. I believe, however, which like you said about generational progress, in order for us to even be better for our families, like you said, which is one of the reasons why for the retreat, the young men learn how to heal themselves so they can go back and implant that into their household. I feel that without us having generational well-being, which is one of my mantras, it's kind of difficult to have generational wealth. In order for us to think better, be better, period. It all starts with, the inside,
Yeah.
spiritually, emotionally, physically, and mentally. And like Dr. G has said, um, for my own knowing, for me to be better and have become better from things that I dealt with mentally, emotionally, and so forth in the past, for me to get into, or I should say, to learn who I really was, which is spirit. That is what my belief and my knowing is. But in order for me to even know that part of myself, had to get rid of and clean up some of that emotional stuff, physical stuff, and mental stuff, which Dr. G is doing and has been doing as a psychologist. Dr. G, how long have you been practicing as a psychologist?
30 plus years.
Oh, okay. So we
Yeah.
would have an expert out here healing these young Black men, helping them to their healing. Yes.
Yeah, 30 plus years. I have been in the field, and so I've done many different things and have always been dedicated to the Black community. And surprisingly now, in my private practice now, most of my clients are Black women.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
That's been interesting for
Uh-huh.
me. And
Hmm.
yeah, I've been in it 30 years.
Okay. Oh, so tell us more about the retreat. I know you said, which is, I was like, oh, massage on the beach. They're going to be at the beach. Those are all things I love to do.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
what gave you the idea? Because I know your book, The Impact of Fathers, I'm sorry, The Impact of a Father's Absence on African American Boys. Would you say that this is where this idea, or how you birthed the retreat?
No. Actually, like that book came out of my dissertation. So I did my dissertation on the impact of father absence on African American boys. So that was some time ago. Um, since I've been in the field and with my personal journey, my spiritual growth, I've transcended the field of psychology
Mm,
and ascended into a very spiritual approach and practice
mm,
uh, what it is that I do. So I really talk about providing wise counsel, right?
okay.
And seeing it from that perspective. Um, I am a conduit from which spirit works and moves through
Mm,
in my practice, and being able to merge and utilize my clinical skills as well as my experience in life now has led me to the platform, which is self mastery.
mm.
Because at the end of the day, the name of the game is really mastering self.
Yes.
Um, as you went through your journey, that's ultimately what it comes back to. Like there will always be things happening on the outside, but our ability to master self, to master our thoughts, our emotions, is really when we begin to ascend and can achieve peace because we
Mm,
have peace from within, right? And so the retreat will focus on the self mastery mindset, which is something that I've developed, and also the 7 keys to self mastery, right? So I have 7 keys to self mastery, which I use in my practice, right? So with
okay.
my clients, my conceptual framework is the 7 keys to self mastery, right? Awareness, acceptance, action, assessment, integration, celebration, and mastery, right? So I go through the 7 keys. So at the retreat, we'll be focusing on the 7 keys and doing workshops on each key, teaching these men and giving them the tools to return home, giving them a framework so that they could develop their own practice.
Mm.
Because I define self-mastery as the practice of disciplining the mind and body for the purpose of spiritual growth and
Yeah.
service to others, right? And so in my transcendence, in my own personal healing from trauma, um, I had to ask spirit, which was my prayer and meditation, to reveal my practice to me
Mm.
so that I could become a practitioner, right?
Mm.
Practitioner heals thyself, right? Like I knew I didn't need to read any more books. I had been a psychologist for 25 years. I didn't need more knowledge. I didn't need more information. What I
Mm.
needed was a practice, a spiritual practice, a mental practice that allowed me to create a sanctuary within myself
Yes.
so that I could have the awareness and the acceptance of who I am, and then to act from a position of power and strength, right?
Mm.
Understanding my connection and my communion with spirit who continues to guide me in my practice. Um, and so the men will learn this framework and understand how developing and asking spirit to reveal your practice can
Mm.
open up unlimited possibilities, right? Unlimited possibilities and for peace and healing, as well as connections and relationships, loving themselves, loving their wives, their daughters, their sisters, their sons, their mothers, everything, right? So self-mastery will be the guiding principle of the retreat from beginning to end. So my book, I'm writing my second book,
Oh.
which will be Self-Mastery Mindset, the 7 Keys to Self-Mastery and Living a Life of Peace and Power, right? And
Mm.
each person will receive a copy of that book. And it's more like a workbook as well, right? To be able to help you guide through these 7 steps. And so the retreat will focus on self-mastery. And then
I-
at the same time, we will also stay connected after the retreat, right?
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're offering that the last part of what you said, that you're going to continue the connection, because um sometimes we I was having a conversation recently with someone, and it was speaking of how should I say it, retraining, right? Or should I say conditioning, or new conditioning. And
Right.
this person was speaking of, I don't understand why this person keeps doing this. When I was like, well, if, like you said about practice, if this is what they have practiced for a long time, this is what they've done for a long time, it takes time to cycle the old out and gain, again, like you said, to practice. And we are all practitioners in our own lives. And I love that you said that, and create this new practice, and then start cycling out different behavior.
Yeah.
And like, also what you brought up about this journey called life, down here. It's all in. It's a continuing process. And if you're open to it, it will teach you some valuable lessons. I would not take back anything what was considered bad in my past, because yeah, to be on the other side of those things, those situations, I would do it all over again to gain the lessons that I know now. I also want to add on to what you said about going back to their families, and they going back to their families anew. That makes me think of an episode of this show called The Shy. Are you familiar with that show, Dr. G?
I'm familiar with the show. Yeah. I never got into it, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, I sometimes I like to watch different shows as a sociology project to me. I like to see, what I'm gonna learn, just like how we might encounter each other out here in this world, it's all a lesson if you allow yourself. The universe is everything is just like, oh, I want to teach you if you just open yourself up.
So
So
true.
I'm watching it, and another reason I'm watching it is because it's called The Shy, since I am from Chicago. And in this particular episode, it brought tears to my eyes, because one of the young Black men, he said, let's get together. Let's talk about, with his friends, his associates. Let's talk about what we going through. And when they got together, they were, it was kind of hard for them, right? And in our culture, I know, for speaking as a Black woman, I cannot, speak for a Black man, which I'm glad that you are doing this for African men, because I know in this space, in this recent times, which is lovely, more of Black women, we are speaking of different things that we want to heal from. But there does need to be a space for our Black men to heal too, because especially if we are choosing to want to be in a couple, a relationship, have a connection with someone else, both parties would, should want healing, because that's us pouring, back and forth to each other, and then pouring in a household, and then pouring out into the world and the different people that we meet. And when I saw that, I was like, wow. I say, yes, they need a space to heal too. I know we have many options. Black women, we have so many different options um, for to help and assist us in our healing, but there needs to be more spaces for our men, not, our young Black men, our more seasoned, because I choose not to say old, our more seasoned men, because I know from even my generation, we grew up in a generation where, you didn't cry. Even me as a female, young girl, if I fell off the slide, just toughen it up. You don't cry, you don't talk about, what's hurting, and you just learn to suppress and just push down, push down, push down everything you've been through physically, emotionally, and so forth. And again, in recent times, it's become more open, has become more aware that yes, we need to talk about the things that we're going through, and even in order for us to practice our healing, being our journey of healing, yes, we have to talk about some of the past stuff and get that up, because it's like, oh, well, maybe that's why I'm acting and doing this right here in this time, is because of I fell down a slide and they told me no, and this is nothing against my parents or nothing. They were just doing the best that they knew how. But them
Yeah.
telling me, no, toughen it up and don't cry. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right. You're so right. You're so correct. I mean, men need these spaces. We see African American women occupying this space and making connections with one another all over the world, right? I'm connected to, Black women that do retreats for Black women, and we see that conversation, that healing is taking place. They are driving this whole initiative, right? Particularly in the area of plant medicine and healing and trauma. So we see that um, it is essential. It is essential for the masculine divine to also ascend,
Yes.
right? If we have the feminine divine healing and ascending, but the masculine divine does not, then we still have an impaired, damaged
Yes.
system and family, right? And so this is an investment, right? And it's not something for the masses. The masses don't get it. They won't get it. History shows that they never will, and they have gotten it. This is for those people who are seeking to invest in themselves, invest in their families, to invest in generational mental health and spiritual growth that you
Yes.
speak about, right? And so it's important for Black men to understand it from that perspective, because the things that we often do invest in do not produce growth, right? It do not produce peace, right? It does not produce the fruits of the spirit that promote and generate longevity.
Yes.
Right? It promotes things that are attached to the material world. And one of the greatest examples of that, understanding your point of how vital it is to have mental and emotional stability and health. Steve Jobs is one of the primary examples of that. He shook up the community of billionaires, right? And in his book, he talks about he wished that he had been more compassionate and kind and spent more time with his children, with his wife, right? He was driven, he was tyrannical in many ways in terms of his business and the people that he worked with, right? So here's a man, one of the richest people in the world, and couldn't add a day of to his life, right? All of the money he had didn't produce happiness. It didn't produce longevity, right? So the investment in your mental health, in your spiritual growth is essential. And for those people who are going to thrive in this current environment of madness and chaos, are going to be those people who invest in their mental, emotional, and spiritual health, because the payoff is exponential, right? We see it exponentially even in terms of the generational return on the investment, right? I ended generational curses and trauma in my own family. I stopped it, right? And I can see with my children, nieces, nephews, right? Like my father had an 8th grade education, right? He did the best that he could. My mother was a high school graduate, right? I went on to get a doctorate degree. Now I have nieces and nephews that have master's and doctorate degrees, right? So, we see the power of ending generational trauma and seeing how it benefits. And the world doesn't want us to think that that's possible because it wants us to be invested in our own traumatization. But the other side of the equation also exists as well.
So when I worked as a nurse, there was 2 things that I learned from that. Again, there's nothing bad if you, for me, that's my belief, if I receive lessons from it. And there has been a change or transformation. One is out of many patients that I would help take care of, many being medical doctors, lawyers, business owners, and much of what they would talk about was that they wasn't happy. When I worked in hospice, when I would sit bedside to patients, and I would love to hear their stories. I would just take it in, like, I learned. Tell me about your life. And sometimes it unfortunately has taken people to be like really put down for them to realize, like you speak about Steve Jobs, like, man, I did all of this and that, and it didn't really change nothing for me, and it didn't really change my family inward. And that's what they would talk about, the different things that they were chasing. And I know that's a big word that's being used when it comes to hustling. People saying hustling and generational wealth. Is that you got to chase the money, you got to go after the money. But the way that I see it is, if you got to chase anything, it don't want you. And you got to really analyze why I keep chasing after something that don't want to be here. It don't want me, But when Dr. G is so on point with this, you all. Please, and he's speaking from a state of knowing. I'm speaking from a state of knowing. When you choose to go inward and go to self, the true self, and learn your spirit, who you truly are, and that this other stuff is just extra, that the body is here for the spirit's purpose anyway. These things that you think that you have to chase just come to you. It's knocking on the door. It just comes to you. I'm like, I didn't ask for that. Oh, it's here, it's there. And I'm not even just talking about material things. I'm talking about living in such a way, being in such a way, being in such a state where you're not worried about those things. You're not allowing yourself to be distracted. But the other thing I wanted to bring up about what I learned from my nursing career was I too was that person out there chasing. So when I speak of this, oh, I gotta go get that money, I'm speaking for myself. And that was uh the big thing, and still, unfortunately, the big thing in nursing, that, oh, the money is out there, the money is out there. But I'm here to tell you that I got burnt out, that it took me to be put down. I blacked out in my car driving home on the expressway, blacked out. And then when I felt myself like leaving, and I was like, oh my God, is this the way I'm gonna go? I was leaving a job, and thankfully, I'm still here. So what happened, which I don't mind sharing the story with anyone, is that I had allowed myself to be so depleted physically, not taking care of myself, and that includes not properly nourishing myself, because there's a difference between nourishment and food, you all. Getting proper rest, not only my body but my mind. Like Dr. G is talking about self mastery, which I know he's gonna teach these black men and everyone else, because he has a big clientele of women as well. But just learning how to really take care of this home, because this is our real home. And I blacked out. Come find out I was low, hemoglobin was low, red blood cells and so forth. And I was not a believer in blood transfusions, but at that time I was so depleted. I said, yes, give me some, well, I got the transfusion. But after that, I did things to get my iron and, red blood cells and so forth up. And I had to make a decision. It's like, what's more important? You going to go get that money, or you you getting the care that you really need for yourself? And I chose to take care of myself. It's been a continuous journey, and when I talk to people about um, physical health, because for me it's more again about being well, right? And being well is like Dr. G has been explaining to us, is getting honing into your spiritual true self, but of course learning how to take care of yourself emotionally, physically, and mentally. And when we have that in this beautiful symbiotic relationship, as I like to think of it, it works. This home becomes um, better, and you're able to function in this world better. Like Dr. G said, with these young black men coming to the retreat, when they learn how to be well of themselves, they go back and they put them seeds into the household, and to the wives and to the children, and then they go and they plant them seeds in other people. And that's why I choose to say generational well-being over generational wealth, because if we're just going to go chase that money, as I said before, a lot of us is honestly, it's not going to even really be here, whether be going physically from this physical plane, because a lot of us, let's be real, a lot of us in the black community are leaving this world early from heart disease and so many different things. But when we learn how to take care of this home first, then again, like I said earlier, those different things that we need, because there's a difference between needing and wanting, those things that we need, they're going to come to us. And then it's going to tell you as well what's really important. Like I had to learn, Nikki, picking up them extra shifts is not important anymore. You going to go get extra money for what? Because it's offered to like, okay, how can we live for, you'll hear the phrase in the UK talk about long live the queen, and how proud they are of their country, these soldiers. And it's not just only the UK, but that's how I see our bodies. It's like, how can I defend Dr. G? How can I work to the best for Dr. G? How can I work for the best or of Nikki? So when we feel things, we're telling our soldiers what to do. When we eat things, we're telling our soldiers what to do. And that's the difference between action and reaction. And we want to act, right? We want to act over react, because reaction is always flight or fight, and you're not really thinking, things out. It's just, which happens, but it should not happen all the time. There should be very little that our bodies is reacting. God forbid somebody has to run from a bear or something. But if we are constantly doing things and living in such a way that we're always in flight or fight, we are stressing ourselves out. We're stressing our soldiers out. We're stretching our trillions of cells out that Dr. G has mentioned. And that's the beautiful thing. Though I have taken many lessons from when I worked as a nurse, but what I love most I love all my classes. Love and like to all my professors, so I'm not going to say that. But what I have learned from the science classes is of how everything that we do, we eat and so forth, in the nutrition class, whether it be biology class, organic, all of it. And I'm like, oh, I say, wow, the body or the cells do all these beautiful things. And it's like when I learned that, but I learned it first, but didn't get the understanding of it truly until later on, especially when I went through that situation and I blacked out at the steering wheel. So that's why, like, even me in this present state, me being a seasoned woman, going through my different chapters of being seasoned, is I act more than how I used to react before. Before it was like, oh my God, this, and now, like, even when it comes to planning my day, it's more of an action. It's like, oh, I'm gonna wake up today, I'm gonna go for a walk, I'm gonna go do this. And whereas before I was just living out of straight, reaction mode, just and stress all the time, which I believed helped lead to me being depleted, my iron levels and so forth. And
Yeah.
that's why I want us to understand again the importance, the importance of being well. Yes, we want to. You, so I say this: that if someone has changed in their appearance from being better, physically, hopefully, they're working on their emotions and their mental health. That's, being more fit or looking good in a dress or pants or whatever. That's beautiful. But for me, my knowing the real purpose of us being well, it's not just outwardly, y'all. So we could feel better inwardly as well. And we can go out here. And like the Dr. G said, going back to the home, these young men going back to their partners or their future partners and knowing how, and knowing the importance, I should say, of being well. Because when they're at peace, it's very difficult for someone to be the opposite, because they don't want the opposite. When you at peace, you just like really in this joyous state. Your body is in harmony. This home is in. You want that for everybody else, so they'll be able to go back, and because this home gets to go back to the physical home and help fix and help be a healer, help be a practitioner, as Dr. G said earlier, to show other people how to make this home better. And that's a goal that I want for more people.
Absolutely, absolutely. I make the distinction between being on the battlefield and being on the practice field, right?
Mm.
So, oftentimes we are living on the battlefield, and the battle is always within, right? I remember some years ago where I kind of woke up and became aware of, just the battle that was going on within inside of me, right? Growing up like, for example, growing up as a kid in New York and being in Harlem and the South Bronx, oftentimes the conversation would be not only with my friends, but it would be with myself. And we understand this, right? Like, I wish so-and-so would say something to me, right? We even on our jobs, right? I wish so-and-so would say that to me. She's not gonna say that to me, he's not gonna say that to me. And we get engaged in the battle as though it's actually happening. So the chemicals in our body are produced, and we start this process at a very young age, right? And so coming to awareness and understanding, making the distinction between the battlefield and the practice field. So now on the practice field, I live on the practice field, right? Everything is practice. I live in my practice, right? Everything is practice. And I'll give you just a very quick example, to just illustrate that point. About a month ago, I was riding to the beach here in Puerto Morelos on my bicycle, and I picked up a pizza and put the box in the basket. When I got to the beach, I realized that some of the pizza had fell out the box and into the basket. And so when I got off my bike and I saw the pizza, I was like, damn, I'm pissed. And my brain said, no, you're resilient, right? My brain is automatically trained to be on the practice field and not on the practice battlefield, right? So I took the pizza, put it in the box, and got everything and got my blanket laid out on the beach and had a beautiful day. But as you said earlier, Nikki, this takes practice, right? And so we can make a choice. Either we're on the battlefield or the practice field. And when you're in a practice field, everything becomes an opportunity to practice. So if you get knocked down, getting knocked down becomes an opportunity to get back up, right? And so you begin to retrain your mind through the process of what we call in science neuroplasticity, where the brain actually rewires itself, doing the exact same thing it did on the negative spectrum, which is to engage in repetitious, habitual thinking and behavior that wires your brain to be triggered automatically into a negative reaction. But we can actually reverse that process through understanding the practice field and repetitively setting up a disciplined structure through help and coaching to begin to rewire your brain. We understand and know that scientifically that is possible, and it happens because it's validated through all of the evidence there. Right?
And that's something. It's so the more. So even when I would go into the rooms or would treat the patients, it made me think of a doctor that I had, a medical doctor I had years ago, one of the best medical doctors, gynecologists I ever had. And he, just so happened to be a man. And he told me that now this doctor had delivered, I don't know how many, he had been a doctor since I think the 60s, he said, and he's going on now. He's not in this physical realm anymore. But he, at that point, when he was my gynecologist, he had been practicing for 50 years or so. And we had a conversation. That's one of the reasons why I liked him, was because he would conversate with me. It wasn't just in and out. And so he told me, he said, out of all the things I have done in my medical career, he said, I have delivered so many babies. He was a doctor in the Vietnam War. He had worked here, there. He's like, I'm still learning. This is still a practice. And that made me think, and I would think of that because that happened before I became a nurse. And when I became a nurse, I would think about sometimes of what he said, that it's always a practice, and just be in a state of learning. So when I would go in and deal with my different patients, so if Jane Doe had high blood pressure and she was in for, different things from that, I learned to not just treat her as a person with high blood pressure just because the person down the hallway is doing this and that, for their high blood pressure. Listen to her and hear, what she's saying. Look at the reports, the results, and what is going on with her, and learn her. That's, it's not about, because you already learned something of the patient down the hallway. Learn her, Nikki, and that had helped me in my the nursing. But it's also something what he said, because I thought about it today and I'm thinking about it now, that it's a practice. And like Dr. G said, life, that's what, if you want to simply put it, it's a practice. And that's why we shouldn't, like Dr. G said, with his pizza, get hung up or, this happened, this, that, and the other that we might say or think. But if we allow ourselves to be open to seeing it in a different way, shifting the perspective, and he still went out and had a beautiful picnic day on that beach with his pizza instead of just being, oh, okay, well, this is what happened to my pizza. This day is over. Okay, let me practice. Let me do something. Let me do a different action, I should say. He got out of that reactive mode and he shifted. Love, peace. I'm going to continue to enjoy my day. I'm still going to eat this pizza because sometimes that's still good pizza. When it slid off the bread a little bit, it was
I
like,
enjoy
oh,
it, all of it.
yeah, so it's like even now, when I think back and I just smile and I laugh at myself, and it makes me think of someone that was in my life. God bless her, she's gone on from the physical realm. One of the mothers, they used to say at the churches, when she would just sit back and she would laugh at people, and I believe it's from her knowing things that of course the younger people didn't know. So now when I see certain things in my life and I just sit back and I laugh and I'm like, okay, so what you gonna do? And I'm like, okay, are you gonna be within the milliseconds? It's like, oh, you gonna be the old Nikki or you want to be the renewed Nikki so you can be a better Nikki? Be like, oh, okay, it's not worth it. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna get mad. I'm just gonna keep it going.
Yeah, we have opportunities to practice every day, all day long. So, and making that distinction of transcending and ascending above the battlefield
Yes.
is one way that we can kind of picture and frame, you know, the opportunity, right? So two things that I like for your listeners to remember, and this is one of the things that I teach. There are two questions that um, are powerful to etch in your consciousness. One is, what is the opportunity?
Mm,
Right. So when things and events and experiences are happening, whether positive or negative, to ask yourself the question before you react,
mm,
what is the opportunity? Right. So if you get knocked down, what's the opportunity? Right? The opportunity is to get back up.
yes.
So remember that question because it shifts your mindset into the framework of solutions.
Yes.
Right. The brain is a tool, and what it seeks to do is to provide answers to questions, but you have to ask the right questions.
Mm,
So when you ask the question, what is the opportunity? It provides the answer in the direction of the solution rather than the problem, right? The other question is, what does that say about me?
mm,
What does that say about me? So if you get knocked down, the opportunity is to get back up. And then you ask the second question, what does that say about me?
mm,
Resilient, right? Wow, I am able to take the stress that life brings. And still, through my consistency, I'm consistent, I'm disciplined, I'm focused, right? I'm vulnerable, right? I can admit the fact that I got knocked down, that I took a L, that I'm hurting. I'm an awareness,
yes.
right? Because when you ask the second question, that provides the opportunity to identify and define yourself from a position of strength and power.
Mm,
It comes to practice, right? What does that say about me? Wow, I'm loving and kind and compassionate. I'm not beating myself up. I'm not saying, you always mess up. You always fall down. You never get things right, right? It presents the opportunity to I see and define yourself from a position of strength and power. And what does that say about me? Because always, I can't, I must, I have to, right? And there's very few things in the world that you have to do.
mm,
One, primarily, is to breathe. A lot of other stuff we gauge in is optional. Really, right? These are absolutes. It takes away freedom, right? And so what we seek to do is to emancipate ourselves from the judge, jury, and executioner, right? Seeking to judge and execute us. And we upgrade the language to one that's kind, compassionate, and gentle.
Mm-hmm.
Ask those two questions: what's the opportunity, and what does that say about me? In that direction, right? And so, like, I've spent years of retraining myself to do that, right? And then the ultimate conclusion, once I begin to define myself from that perspective, I can move into the sixth step of self mastery, which is celebration. I love that about me. I love that I'm resilient. I love that I'm disciplined. Beautiful. I love that I'm in integrity, that I said I was going to do this and now I'm doing it. I love that about it. Because the trillions of cells in your body respond to that vibrational frequency, right? Of defining, identifying yourself from a position of love, compassion, right? And that's ultimately what you want.
Yeah.
Right? Because everything that we're taught in terms of the mindsets that we develop, that we inherit, it teaches us to fit in and to serve the system. The system itself, right? And servitude. So we're in servitude to the system, right? And this is why I eradicated the family structure, the community structure, the spiritual structure, because they don't want you to worship anything other than the system. They don't want you to love and adore the family. They don't want you to love and adore the Black church, right? They don't want you to love and adore the HBCUs, right? The community. They want you to love and adore and be not even love, but to be dependent upon the system. And they use fear as the catalyst for that. So these two questions is how we ascend above, one of the ways that we ascend above the battlefield and get on the practice field. And so another thing that I wanted to share with you, like one of the things that we have in common is that, yeah, spirit animates everything. What you're seeing when you talk about, you like to watch shows, that's art imitating real life. And one of the things that motivated me to make the move out of the United States to Mexico is when I was watching the movie Get Out. I saw that as a message. I was like, wow, there's a deeper meaning here. Like, I actually felt like they was telling me to get out, right? And I saw the spirit that was animating the movie, right? Watch the movie, you just don't look at it's just not the characters in the story. It's the spirit that's animated and it's giving life to all of that. Sure enough, when Get Out came out and I watched it, I think within a couple of months I was out of the United States. Now, there's a whole lot of other things that was a part of that, but I just saw that as continued confirmation that it's time to make that move. And I came down here to Puerto Morelos, and I'm happier than I've ever been before, since that move 3 years ago.
I'm glad you brought up about the move, Dr. G, and that is another conditioning, another belief within the Black community, that this is where I was born, this is where I'm physically going to die. But we go through many lives and deaths on this journey. That's just my knowing. But it is to my knowing that if that community, which is one of the things you are in a practice of healing for our young Black men, so it can, reverberate throughout their communities, their homes, and so forth. If that community is not serving the best for you for whatever reason, this is no fault to the other people, then, or the systems, then it is best for you to put yourself in a place where you can be well, where you can begin healing. One of the reasons why me being in South Florida is I learned them for me that I need to be in warmer climates. Me, being in cold, and I still love you up north. I will still love you. I will still, because you was my beginning. Um, me being in colder climates too long, um, it I feel like a rustling, and that's one of the reasons why within that last year I was like, okay, we gotta move by next year. Um, and I take you back a little bit, rewind 2020, when that had happened, the pandemic, and then when people were able to go outside again, unfortunately up north, and if you all are familiar with the winters in Chicago, so the winters can be very long. The season might be 3 months, but the winter might say, I think we're gonna stay for 6. So it was the pandemic, then the winter, and I just like felt like this. I felt bothered. I felt like I couldn't like really move, and I know it was telling me to move some things emotionally and mentally. And I'm a person that love to walk outside. My form of movement is to move and walk outside. I love to connect with nature because it reminds me to connect with the nature of myself. So when I came here, uh, a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have changed for me emotionally and physically, mentally. And when we are better in those different states, our spirit is able to be like, oh, yes, oh, we could really talk to, oh, we could do this and we could do that. And again, that's the reason why, the purpose of this home. Um, yeah, so like unfortunately in the Black community, um, and I'm glad that you first, though you chose to go to Mexico for your own reasons, but the universe always has a bigger plan. You went there first, but to understand the importance, which you was already in the practice of healing, but also to heal other Black men, to show them something different, because unfortunately a lot of us don't go nowhere outside of a 10 to 20-mile radius. And to
Very,
show, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. G.
very, very true, very true. So, one thing, let me just make just kind of a shift, right? So, like for me, like I don't see myself as a healer, right? So, like I see myself as a practitioner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but what I do is that I heal myself, right,
Yes.
and I can help other people to heal themselves, right. So that's one thing. The other thing, you're so correct and on point when you talk about, a lot of times people think that they have to stay in the place that they, are in their family, right. And so for the listeners, what's important for you to understand, for those of you who are hearing this, is that you are a link in an unbroken chain that spans back to the beginning of time.
Mm,
What's the evidence of that? The evidence is that you're still here, right?
mm,
Because there are people that don't exist anymore on the planet, right? We could look at the Native American community that was here prior to the invasion of Europeans, right? And there are Native Americans and indigenous people that don't exist.
mm,
Their whole gene pool has been wiped out. So the fact that you're here means that you are a link in an unbroken chain that spans back to the beginning of time. This is what is important to understand. And what does that mean? That means that there is no place on this planet that your ancestors have not been.
mm,
Everything originated and came out of the continent of Africa, right? So there's no place that your ancestors have not been, which means that every place on this planet is sacred ground,
mm,
right? So no matter where my feet plant, I'm on sacred ground because my ancestors have already been there and I claim that. So here in Mexico, I claim that wherever I move is sacred ground because my ancestors have already been here.
mm.
So it's important to understand that, right? Like the world, the globe, the planet is yours.
Yes, yes,
It's for you to move, to be a part of. And there's no place on this earth that your people have not been.
mm,
And so for me, that's the mindset that I came into my experience with, is that my people have been here before, right?
mm,
When I sit on the beach and I look at the Caribbean Ocean and I see cruise ships. Yeah, I certainly understand that at one point in time, those were slave ships.
Mm.
But I also understand that hundreds of years before slavery, my ancestors were also crossing the Caribbean Ocean. And the evidence is that there were Native Americans who spoke about them.
Mm.
There were Native Americans who drew pictures of them. There were Europeans. As a matter of fact, Christ, the Madonna in Europe, when you go to Europe, you see a Black depiction of Christ, right? You see that. Hannibal, we see that. So our ancestors were crossing these oceans thousands of years before Europeans even understood that the earth was round, because there was a point in time when they thought it was flat. We learned that in
Yeah.
crossing the ocean thousands of years before that, when they thought they was going to sail off the edge of the earth. So wherever you go, just claim it.
Yes. And you know, with us moving around, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I believe I know the same, that you know, besides this being our true home, this earth is your home. This earth is your home. If you know, we speak of getting to know thyself, you know, your true self, your spirit, which spirit is 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 not really confined, though it's in this form right now, or what we consider a form, but it connects to everything. It is of everything. So even you going to Mexico, I this and I want you let me know, do when you just move throughout Mexico, do because okay, I say this, I you speak of trillion cells, which I agree with too, that what's in your cells, what has been passed down, that's why I want to say been passed down in your cells from generations before, the lessons, you know, just everything. It's like you're moving, you're helping to move them to another place. You know, you're bringing your ancestors with you. So even when they came to the Caribbean islands and put their feet on that land, you know, because we are constantly sharing cells. You know, when like science even shows of how in our bodies, oh, this beautiful home, this beautiful world that's living within many worlds that is in a universe. It's just, oh, it's just so beautiful that the cells that we have been are not only from stars, but our cells that have been shared with generations before, not just only being passed down. So your mother and your daddy had so and so, and then they had so. No, we are sharing cells with people that lived in different countries, because as we are being around each other, we are sharing cells. You know, whether we're breathing in each other's cells. I know a lot of people don't know that. That might not sound, or it might sound gross, but it's for real. When you are in the presence of somebody else, you're breathing them in. You're literally breathing them in, and they're breathing you in. So it's
Mhm.
like you get to, you know, when we talk about healing the ancestors, we get to do that in how we, like Dr. G is saying, how we practice ourselves, how we are experiencing with ourselves, and him going to a different land. You know, he put them in a backpack. He brought them along with him.
Absolutely. I mean, like they, certainly guide my steps, right? I mean, they create safety and sanctuary for me, right? Like I don't step into a space and I am completely unarmed and vulnerable. I have the power of 1,000 years of ancestors that come
Yes,
with me, right? And they protect me. So, what good is it to have power if you don't use it?
yes.
So, like, I claim all of that power, my ancestral power, everything, right? I mean, we can call on our ancestors. I mean, I have some incredible stories where I've called on them and they've come through for me. So, that's another podcast. But I mean, we can call on our ancestors. So
Mhm.
understand this as, you know, as we move forward, is that we are unlimited beings. There is nothing that we cannot do and be, including limited,
Yeah.
right? We can take a limited, powerful being and make it limited. That's how powerful we are.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so for those who are listening, what I would say to you, if you are listening to this podcast, to me, that tells me that you're not part of the masses,
Mm.
that you are seeking to grow, you're
Yeah.
seeking information, you're seeking opportunity, and that you've been on that path all your life, right? Like, and so being on that path, just see yourself as not someone who is alone, right? You have people who are around you, you have ancestors, you have power within yourself.
Yeah.
Call on power. And if you have a dream, my dream was always to live in a tropical climate, just like yours
Mm.
was one climate. If you have a dream, then, you know, pursue it. Don't allow your energy to be depleted through fear and anxiety. um, you can make it happen, right? And when you do decide to make that choice and decision, um, claim success, see success, right? Network with people. I put my email address in the chat so that if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can reach out to you and get my email address and I'll respond. But um, you know, there's just so much more to this world out here, and there's so much more to you and I. Um, like I said, we are a link in an unbroken chain of power, and it's time for us to use that power in the 21st century. We have ascended to a point of awareness where ignorance is just unacceptable
Mm.
point in time. And so, you know, if you're seeking to, whether or not is to move out of the country or to just visit and experience a new place, um, certainly I tell you to go for it 100%. But even if you don't, and this is one of the things that I also tell people is like experience nature in your own environment.
Yes.
A as a strategy to create health and wellness within your own body. Connect with the earth. I grew up in the largest concrete jungle in America, in New York City. But in every city, and I know there's in Chicago, there's a park, right? There are parks. Go to the park, get out, be around trees, allow your body to reconnect with nature. Because one of my definitions for insanity is to believe that which is unnatural is natural,
Mm.
which is natural is
Wow.
unnatural, right?
Wow.
The system seeks to produce fear of what's natural, to be afraid of nature, right? Because we want to think that it's unnatural to be in nature. There are things that can hurt us.
Mm.
The planet, the earth, vibrates at a frequency that resonates at the same or similar frequency in the human body.
Yeah.
And so as we touch it, as we're close to it, that frequency that it resonates at and the vibration that it resonates at can help heal the human body, right? So I sleep grounded. I've been sleeping grounded for about 5 years. I have a sheet that plugs into the ground in the wall on my electrical, you know, wall in the socket. That ground, your refrigerator is grounded, right? That round prong, your house is grounded, your apartment is grounded. And so I sleep grounded. And what that does is that on the sheet that I have, as I'm sleeping, it grounds me to the earth.
Mm.
And so now it's as if I'm sleeping on the earth
Wow.
and the vibration of the earth, the frequency comes through the ground into my body and it helps to stabilize the cells so that they're not free radical cells. And this is what,
Mm.
right? And so if you don't leave the country, if you're in a big city, try to spend some time in the park. Take your children to the park.
Yes.
Allow them nature, right? This has a powerful healing effect. And so, I highly recommend that for those who are listening to this, right? Not everyone can leave the country. I understand that. Not everyone can pick up and go. But you can do things that are within your control. One of the first early on is that I have clean water, right? If you want to, one thing, be healthier, drink more water, right? So much of our illness comes from stagnation of the system, constipation, flushing out the toxins in our body, right? Drink more water. The second thing that you can do, which is free, is to get more sunlight, right? It's part of what keeps us in bondage, right? Is that we're disconnected from that which is natural.
Yes.
More time in artificial light than we do in sunlight, right? So step out, get sunlight on a daily basis, right? To produce vitamin D in your body, right? This is your melanated skin soaks it up, right? Water, get sunlight, and move your body, right? So these are things that are within our control that promote health, regardless of where you're at, right? Regardless of what your current state of health is, you can drink more water. Hopefully, you can ambulate and move unless you're bedridden to get more sunlight. The other thing is that you can move more than you're moving now, right? Have a meal within 30 minutes, even if you can't go outside because it's 0 degrees, move around the house within 30 minutes so that it aids in your digestion, right? So that you're not sitting down and causing the digestive process to be stagnant, which causes constipation, what causes, your colon to be backed up and toxins to be in your body. So after you eat within 30 minutes, get up and move around, clean up the house, move around, stand up, aid your digestion. These are easy things that we can do that can improve all of our health, no matter where you're at, right? So to control the things that are within your control. And so I want to leave that with your listeners. 3 easy things that everybody can do. And the other
I'm sorry.
The other 2 is ask the questions. What's the opportunity and what does that say about me, right? So those are 5 things.
Dr. G, this has been wonderful. And yes, I think you might have to come on and share some of those ancestor stories. I don't know, because I love a good spirit story. Like I told you, when I had a chance, which is another reason why I had to leave nursing, because I couldn't really, sit with my patients too much. And when I got a free chance, I'm like, oh, let's go talk. But you're gonna have to come back and share one of those ancestor stories.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. G. I'm going to leave Dr. G's information below. Dr. G, is the retreat still open for more participants?
Yeah, it's still open. We have a couple of slots left for the retreat. It's going to be in Puerto Morelos. To the 19th here in Mexico. You will fly in Cancun. Once you pay for the retreat, everything is taken care of. There's no out-of-pocket experiences. We'll pick you up at the airport. We'll come and get you, bring you to all of the sites and take you on all of the places that we're going to go. It's going to be about 15 powerful men across the age range that are going to connect, and it's going to be transformative, right? February 15th. And for the women who may be hearing this, like if you're going to retreats and you're invested in your own health, give the gift of investment for your husband, for your lover, for your boyfriend or whatever, and send them to the retreat, because we're very resistant. Men can be very resistant to that type of experience, right? So, this is an opportunity for them to invest in their health and to invest in your relationship, because then when that happens, you're equally yoked. One of the things that relationships are breaking down is because people are not equally yoked. Right? And so both of you will be investing in self. So come on down and hang out with me, learn the 7 keys of self-mastery. It's going to be an incredible event.
Oh my God. Thank you, Dr. G. Thank you so much for sharing this space with us and the beautiful rays of light out there in the audience. I'm going to leave Dr. G's information below, how you can, and you have to, move quickly To get those 2 spots, that's the only 2 spots that's open. I'm going to leave his email as he spoke before to reach out to him, and also his website if you would like to reach out to him to schedule any coaching or therapy sites. Like, we discussed or said earlier, Dr. G has been a psychologist, a practicing psychologist for over 30 years, coming with a wealth of not only knowledge, but wisdom because of living experience, right? That's the best way of how we learn.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. G, so much.
Love your energy. I appreciate the opportunity and have an incredible day.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Blessings.